I am very excited to have, as Chris is, to have Jeff here and next to me as the interim head coach. Yes, he is fully experienced enough. Yes, he is fully capable. I'm glad he doesn't have any NFL experience. I'm glad he hasn't learned the fear that's in this league. Expectations are high here. Look, we're the fourth winningest franchise in the league since 2000. All right, that means in the upper quartile of winners, we're in the top quartile of that upper quartile. We don't build rockets to go to Mars. We're not nuclear scientists. That is none of our jobs here. It's a very simple jobs that we do here. I don't know how to make sausage. I don't know what goes into sausage. But I do know how to build a football team because I've been around for 52 years.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry. I am Jay Croucher, and we are building rockets to go to Mars, Matthew Berry.
So what you just heard was the voice of Colts owner Jim Irsay in his press conference announcing Jeff Saturday as the interim head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Lots to unpack there.
A lot of words.
Yeah. What was the phrase he used? The quadrant?
No, I was going to say, would you say that are we in the top quartile of the upper quartile of fantasy football podcasts? I would hope so.
Sure, probably. It feels made up. You're a math guy. Is that an actual?
Yeah, I'm not sure Jim Irsay's a math guy.
No,
he's top quartile of the upper quartile.
By the way,
making sausage.
To me, the most shocking. There was a lot of things. There's a lot to unpack out of that. But to me, the most shocking thing is that he's 52 years old. That he said, "I've been here 52 years." What is it? Like, has he owned the Colts for 52 years? Like, there's no way that guy's only 52 years old.
It's unbelievable. There's a lot going on there.
A lot going on there.
Taking shots at analytics.
Yeah.
You and I,
he's 63 years old, I'm being told.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Has he owned the Colts since he was 11? I don't
believe he. Yeah, it was like a Jeff Saturday type of hire.
Okay. Listen, I got a couple of things here real quickly. First off, everyone's going to mock Jim Irsay, except this guy.
Should.
There's one guy that will not mock Jim Irsay and has two thumbs, and it's this guy right here. And I'll tell you why. Because Jim Irsay and Jim Irsay alone got up at the NFL owners' meetings and threw a grenade saying we should think about forcing Dan Snyder to sell the Commanders. So Jim Irsay is a hero to me. Do you understand that? Like, Jim Irsay can do no wrong.
Choose.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe not the hero we wanted, but the hero we need.
Yeah.
The other thing is
Harvey Dent vibe to Jim Irsay.
Right. The other thing about him, God bless Jim Irsay for this, is like, so I know Jeff Saturday. Right. I mean, I know him. I worked with him for a number of years at ESPN. I have his cell phone. I haven't texted him. I'm sure his phone's been blowing up. I will here in a couple of days when it dies down. But I've worked with him. There was a year at ESPN where we actually sat next to each other in the war room watching football games. He's been a guest on my show multiple times. So, I know him fairly well. And I will tell you this. He's awesome. He's an awesome human being. He is everything you see on TV. He is kind. He is intelligent. He is encouraging. He is warm. I believe he obviously has the credibility of having a great NFL playing career. He's a Colt. He's close with Peyton Manning. I think he will win over that locker room. You know what I mean? I think there'll be some respect. I have no idea what kind of head coach he will be. I have no idea what kind of offense he will run or have. I don't think he knows either. That was one of the things that came out last night. Is I got to figure out who's going to call the plays.
Yeah.
Right?
Is that a problem?
Because they don't have anyone on the staff that has NFL experience at actually even calling a play. But what I will tell you is that he is a good human being. That I believe the players will, they will at least give him an opportunity. You know what I mean? Like he's a good human being. I think he'll have to lean on his coordinators in a big way here. And the other thing here is that last night there was all sorts of craziness that went on in the NFL, right?
Yeah,
there was,
sure.
I mean, right. So you have Irsay and you have Jeff Saturday. You have NFL reporters shirtless on national broadcasts. It was a bizarro world yesterday in the NFL, and yet. You know who wasn't being talked about? The Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
That's right. For one day, it was bat blank crazy in the NFL, and it wasn't because of the Commanders.
Yes.
There was no new lawsuits.
No one's
news,
in jail.
No news. No controversy coming out. No awful thing. No misspelling a legend's name. There was no like, this awful thing that happened 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 3 years ago that came out now, that happened under the watch of some of the people that are still there at the Commanders. Like, so it was, yesterday was a great day.
Yeah. We should ask our friends at BetMGM to set a market on how long it's going to take Jeff Saturday to learn the fear of NFL coaches. I'm going to say it's about 17 and a half minutes of watching Sam Ellinger play quarterback on Sunday. But let's get into some Roto World headlines. And obviously Jeff Saturday does headline them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's...
All right, we're just going to skip the animation here.
Let's skip the animation. Let's hear from Jeff Saturday talking about who his offensive play caller is going to be.
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah. Let's listen to that.
Who will call plays on Sunday?
Yeah, I haven't made a decision yet, but I've interviewed guys, and I'm going to continue to interview guys on the staff and going through that. And I'll decide something this evening. But it's I'm drinking from a fire hydrant a little bit, so we're just we're trying to meet with everybody, get this done, and then I'll continue that part. The great part about this, and I'll just say this, is there are fantastic coaches on this staff. And men who have done this a long time. There's former head coaches, but there are guys in that offensive room who have called a lot of games and a lot of plays, and there's a lot of men who have put a lot of time into this. So I have no fear. I will pick the right guy, and we will ride with it.
With all
let's
due
ride.
Respect, yeah,
they'll
let's
ride with it. More riding.
A
lot of riding going on in the NFL this year, Jay Croucher.
With all due respect to Jeff Saturday, I think he's going to be drowning by the fire hydrant on Sunday. I think the Raiders -6.5 is one of the great bets of all time.
Well, it's gone up, right? It was -6 yesterday. Now it's up to 6.5.
Already 6.5. I think it's going to close
6.5.
like 8. I mean, how can you back the Colts +6.5 with Sam Ellinger? No one's ever called the plays. I mean, we should have like a Varsity Blues Friday Night Lights situation where Matt Ryan just becomes offensive coordinator.
Right.
Why not? He's probably more qualified than anyone else to be calling the plays.
Right, yeah, exactly. And Blue, the Colts mascot, who's a buddy, who's great.
We can get him to
he'll come out in the whipped cream bikini. Absolutely,
Sure.
Yeah. We're doing Varsity Blues. Let's go the whole 9 yards. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, so they're at the Raiders this week. Then they're home to the Eagles. Home to the Steelers.
The line might be 20 in that game.
Cowboys.
The Cowboys, they have a good defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Micah Parsons going to
it's unbelievable, right?
Alive.
They're at Raiders, home to the Eagles, home to Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football.
Oh boy,
they might have to have more people take off their shirts to distract from that game.
Let's talk about some of the fantasy implications.
Here's what I would tell you. The fantasy implications is that this offense is a disaster. Since Sam Ellinger took over, they're 31st in total yards per game. They're 31st in passing yards per game. He's QB 32 over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging 6.8 fantasy points per game. QB 32, do you know what that means? That means he is the worst quarterback in the NFL from a fantasy points per game basis.
That reconciles with what I've been seeing on tape from Sam Ellinger.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's the offensive line can't block. It's a disaster. Now, they are playing the Las Vegas Raiders, so that's helpful at least, right? I mean, the Raiders are 25th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. They're a bottom 10 scoring defense. So if there is a matchup where the Colts could potentially move the ball, Jay Croucher, it would be this one. I mean, it feels like, again, like I was making a bunch of jokes, but it does feel like, hey, look, it is the meme of the dog sitting at the kitchen table with flames all around him. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah. I mean, the Raiders aren't. The problem, though, if you're on the Colts, is that the Raiders are still an NFL team. They're still an NFL team. They've still got Max Crosby rushing Sam Ellinger. I mean, I just think this, like, let's talk betting-wise. I think it's very difficult for any market to price what this means. Like, what is it worth? They've got no one who's ever called plays. This guy's getting called off the street, basically, NFL-wise, to be able to coach the team. That has to be worth at least 3 points to the line.
I mean, look, they were bad.
They're already bad.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. Pretend everyone's still in place.
Yeah.
I mean, right, so the line opened at 6. The line, assuming Frank Reich was the coach, the line opened at 6.
It has to be worth more than half a point. Just has to be.
You would think so.
Yeah.
I will tell you a couple of things here. So first off, they're going to, Irsay might be crazy like a fox, right? The upcoming NFL. No, hang on, seriously. He may be crazy like a fox because, like, he can't blatantly tank, right? I mean, like, we saw what happened. What happened with the accusations, in Miami and everything like that. He can't blatantly tank.
No.
But he can hire Ted Lasso, right? For people who are unfamiliar with the premise of Ted Lasso is a college football coach who is hired by the owner of a soccer team.
Yes.
At least at the beginning of the series, to try to tank the team. Like he's hired there. He's the wrong fit for the team, and he's purposely hired, not because she's a moron, but because she's desperately wants him to tank the team. And then, anyway, it's a great series. Highly recommend Ted Lasso. But what I would say is, so maybe this is all an attempt to try to, get a low draft pick in a draft that is expected to be, with a lot of blue chip quarterback prospects and should be a very healthy NFL draft. So maybe he's crazy like a fox here.
Yeah. If I was a coach in the NFL, I would really be wanting the Colts to lose by 40. Because if Jeff Saturday comes in and beats the Raiders, how do you feel if you're like Brandon Staley or whatever? It's like, this job's easy. Anyone can coach in the NFL. Louis Riddick, also a friend of mine, former colleague from ESPN, highly respected in NFL circles and at ESPN. Like, he tweeted just, bruh. Yeah. I mean, I think that sums it up.
Right. I mean, like, because Louis Riddick has been considered for, front office position. Anyway, there's lots to unpack with this story. For our show's purposes, we'll let Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk and Chris Sims and the Unbuttoned crew dive into the NFL implications of all this. And but what I can tell you from a fantasy perspective here is that I think you're probably still starting with your nose held and your eyes closed. You're probably still starting Michael Pittman and Deion Jackson or Jonathan Taylor.
Yep.
We'll see if Taylor is out. I think the concern here is if you have Taylor, is that if they're just on full-on tank mode, even though they won't actually say it, why are you going to put more mileage on Jonathan Taylor, who's a franchise player?
Yeah, and
why
the season at this point, I know they've got 3 wins and they're in the AFC South, but the season has to be basically a write-off at this point. And Taylor with the ankle sprain, he's having Saquon Barkley's season last year. You should just sit him and get him right. So that's why Deion Jackson just has to be rostered everywhere.
Everywhere, and I do think just the volume of work he'll get there. You'll see some Zach Moss or whatever, but I just think the volume for those two guys, regardless of who's calling plays, like, the playbook's going to be the playbook. It's not like all of a sudden they're going to all right, now we're going single wing or something like that. They've got the plays that they've been running under Frank Reich here for a number of years. They're going to continue to use that playbook. Yep. It's just picking all right, are we doing a pass or
Would you be trying to trade Jonathan Taylor? Because he still has the name Jonathan Taylor. It was only 3 months ago that he's getting picked number 1 overall in drafts. There is still some sheen there.
Yeah, I think it depends on a couple of things here. Where let's play a little bit of a name game,
sure,
if you will, in terms of some potential guys that you might trade for. I will say in general, it depends on where you are in the season. Are you right? So as we enter week 10 of the NFL, are you 6-3 and feeling pretty good about yourself? Or are you 4-5 and you're like, I gotta win? So if you have a little bit of a cushion here, you're 7-2, you're 6-3, and you're like, then at that point, I don't mind either trading for Jonathan Taylor, hoping he comes back soon, and or taking a flyer on him, because you would think in a dumbed down offense they would just kind of just ride him heavily. But I do think there's a chance that he gets shut down here as well, just because again, if they're in kind of tank mode. If I need to win now, if I could get a usable piece for him, somebody that is a no-brainer starter, not an elite guy, because Taylor's value is lower than it's ever been all season right now, given the chaotic mess and he hasn't played.
Now, this is
give me some suggestions.
This is an incredible question, given where Taylor was drafted. But would you rather have Michael Carter or Jonathan Taylor?
The fact that I'm pausing should tell you everything.
I think I'd might rather have Carter.
I think it's probably Carter, just because I know, but Taylor's been bad, and
he's had one of the greatest running back seasons in NFL history.
I'm with you, and they've got James Robinson there, but that's still going to be a run-heavy team. Yep. The Jets are, and they're going to be competitive in most games.
Let's race through a few of these. Cordero Patterson.
I'd rather have Patterson.
Okay, Devin Singletary.
Well, let's wait.
We'll see let's see exactly
the next news item.
All right, David Montgomery.
I'm just Taylor still.
Okay, Ezekiel Elliott. To me, that's just a coin flip. I don't think you can make a right or wrong choice there.
I'm going to say Zeke because you know why? Zeke's going to play.
Yep, he will. Okay, quickly, same thing with Michael Pittman. Would you rather have Michael Pittman or Terry McLaurin?
McLaurin.
Yep. Jerry Jeudy.
Michael Pittman.
DJ Moore.
Pittman.
Alan Lazard. I think I'd rather have Pittman.
Yeah. But, like, it's close. Like, that, just to give you an idea of, like, how that's the range we're in with these guys.
Yeah.
If you can stick it out with Taylor and Pittman, I would, just because their value is so low right now.
Yep.
And hopefully they have a big game. Like, it's a good matchup against the Raiders. And so if Taylor's active, he probably hopefully gets into the end zone here. Again, Pittman's going to get 9 targets in this thing, you know, and so it's a disaster, but I'm probably hanging tough. Hopefully you can get a good game and then you can trade him.
Yep.
But if you need to win this week, I understand the panic and wanting, like, give me somebody that I know I can get production out of, because just who knows with what's going on with the Colts.
Yep. I think there will be people who have a situation where they have Devin Singletary on their bench, and if you're riding high, if you're 7-2 and you're just thinking about the playoffs, then you might trade Devin Singletary for Jonathan Taylor just so you get a free crack at the upside, because Taylor could be a top 5 running back in the last 4 weeks of the season.
Sure.
You just don't know. Now, speaking of Devin Singletary, we're going to talk about Josh Allen now, but first let's hear from Sean McDermott on Josh Allen's elbow.
We're just going through it, still evaluating, and we'll see where it goes. I'll know more the next 24 hours, and then probably be able to check in with you guys back on it on Wednesday. The one definite thing I can tell you is we all know Josh and how competitive he is, and he loves to compete, loves to be out there with his teammates. So I would never count him out, but that's the one thing I do know about him is that right now the medical piece we're still evaluating, and I'll know more again for myself even tomorrow morning a little bit more, and then I'll next talk to you guys on Wednesday and I'll update you that.
So that was Sean McDermott talking about Josh Allen, who has a UCL injury, got a snap back on the strip sack on 2nd down against the Jets on that last drive. Now, as soon as I heard that, you know what I did, Matthew Berry?
What did you do?
I went to BetMGM and I bet on Patrick Mahomes to win MVP. I bet on the Kansas City Chiefs to win the AFC title and the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, because that is very concerning. When he's talking about, I know Josh Allen can, gut it out, like the fact that they don't have a definitive diagnosis yet, and who knows, news could break any moment that will just change everything, but I would certainly be concerned about Josh Allen right now.
Yeah, look, anytime a franchise player, and that's what he is, right? To the NFL, to fantasy teams, he was the number 1 quarterback, drafted in pretty much every fantasy league. He's the number 1 quarterback in fantasy so far in a points per game basis. The Bills are number 1 in total yards per game. They're 3rd in passing yards per game. Josh Allen is a superstar, backwards, forwards, however you want to categorize it. So the question now becomes, what do you do if you're the Buffalo Bills? I don't want to over-panic, and I don't want to panic yet. Like, we're waiting to hear, and this is kind of Sean McDermott is sort of from what I understand, this is kind of a typical answer, right? I will see on Wednesday. But the fact that there's even a conversation is eyebrow raising.
Yep.
I don't mind your bets that you would make, as Joe Buscaglia says here on Twitter, at Joe Buscaglia, and Joe's covered the team for years. For reference, McDermott will usually point to them, quote, still evaluating an injured player the day after the game. A pretty common answer from him. I wouldn't draw any conclusions, either good or bad, from just those answers today. That is, again, Joe on Twitter, Joe Buscaglia. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. I apologize, Joe, if I'm not.
Pick him, Buscaglia versus Buscaglia, but we'll go with it. Yeah.
Sure, it was Buscaglia. I mean, it might be Buscaglia. I don't know. I apologize to Joe, but he does a great job. Either way, followed him for years. Here's what I would do. So I understand why you bet by Mahomes, Chiefs, all that. That makes sense. From a fantasy football perspective, I think I'm picking up Case Keenum today, just in case. Because here's what I would tell you about Case Keenum. And again, I've used this phrase a lot. He's a professional quarterback. And I don't mean that in any kind of slight. Like, he's solid. And anyone that is going to be in a pass-heavy offense with Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis and Isaiah McKenzie and, Khalil Shakur and, they now have some nice pass-catching running backs, not only Singletary, but they've added Nyheim Hines. Like, that is going to be fantasy relevant, especially against a Vikings defense that is 30th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. Case Keenum revenge game. Hashtag revenge game.
Yeah, I mean, Colts might win the division if they had Case Keenum at quarterback, honestly. Like, he is good enough that he will be able to play to his weapons, and Buffalo has almost as many weapons as anyone.
He's not going to be as good as Josh Allen because he's not, and he won't have the rushing upside that Josh Allen does, but I think to the extent you have a Bills player other than Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, for example, he's going to be fine. Case Keenum will be able to get the ball. I'm not worried if, and this is all if Josh Allen misses time. We will cover the story throughout the week. What I would just tell you as you head into waivers tonight is that be aware that there is a possibility, and I can't put any percentage on it, but there is at least there's a non-zero chance, Jay, that Josh Allen misses time.
Absolutely.
And so you want to be prepared for that. And so whether it is picking up Case Keenum or picking up some other streamer in your league, if you don't have a second quarterback, I would assume most people in one quarterback leagues that have Josh Allen are only rostering Josh Allen because why would you ever need a second quarterback? He's Josh Allen.
Absolutely. And you talked about the non-zero chance. That's why the Chiefs are the bet right now, because the betting market, BetMGM, makes the Chiefs plus 550 to win the Super Bowl, plus 275 to win the AFC. Those prices are pricing in Josh Allen definitely being there, and there is the chance that he's not there. And then if he's not there for 2-3 weeks, whatever, the Chiefs become the favorite to get the 1 seed. And also, even if he is there, you're still riding with Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's not like your bet falls apart. You just get a free swing at the upside. Let's jump.
I like that call. By the way, after the Vikings, it's the Browns, and then they're at Detroit for the Thanksgiving Day game. So decent schedule here for Case Keenum if he does have to step in for Josh Allen. But we will hope for the best and follow that story closely.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about Monday Night Football. Usually we lead with Monday Night Football, but it wasn't an amazing game, so we decided to go with the great Jim Irsay instead.
Yeah.
But here are the fantasy football top performers last night. It's the Kenyon Drake Show. 24.9 fantasy points. He got the 2 touchdowns, 24 carries was the big surprise. Lamar Jackson, a subpar game from him, though. He didn't kill you, helps you with the rushing yards. And then everywhere else, it was pretty disappointing. Outside of Juwan Johnson, who, if you streamed him as a tight end, or he was on your roster anyway, he delivered with the touchdown.
He had the one big play, basically.
And that's all you need out of the tight end position these days.
By the way, God bless, because I was down like 2 points in a matchup, and I was done, and the guy that I'm playing had the Ravens defense, and it was just like neck and neck. And this is one of the leagues where I'm just like, every week, like I lose by like 3 points to like the highest score. Like I'm literally third in total points in this league, and I'm like 5-4 or something like that. It was super frustrating, but finally one went my way because when Juwan Johnson ran that touchdown, the way the defensive scoring in this league, where it cost the guy 2 points, ended up winning by 1 point.
It's not our happy hour league, is it?
What?
It's not our happy hour league.
No. I got destroyed in our league.
Oh, really? What happened
yeah,
there?
stupid.
Can we talk about it?
Yeah, stupid Brian Rubin and his dumb Joe Mixon.
3 days in a row references for Brian Rubin.
Because when Brian Rubin is working on another show here, and and it's probably gonna it's
Brother from Another.
Yeah, it's gonna be on. I'm not sending him to Brother for Another. No. He's going to like Oxygen or something. He's going to one of our. No, we're sending him to you have no idea. Like NBC Sports Net Alaska or something.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
One of our.
Get him doing some curling.
Make no mistake. Oh, yeah. He's done. B. Rubes is done. It's all right, though.
Yeah.
He had a good run.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Let's talk about some of these.
But all I was going to say is, that I don't know that there's much takeaway here. I mean, Kenyon Drake is available in a lot of leagues. He got 86% of the running back carries. The problem is that on the Ravens side of the ball, let's just talk about them for a second. They're on a bye next week. And so, you want to pick, Jim Harbaugh said J.K. Dobbins is 3 to 4 weeks away from returning. We don't know the status of Gus Edwards. I don't mind hanging on to Kenyon Drake through the bye just because we just don't know the status of Edwards. And so when they come out of the bye, they play the Carolina Panthers. And so, as you see Drake just walk into an end zone right there, had a really nice game. They just dominated, and Drake, give credit what credit's due. Kenyon Drake had a nice game here, in a game in which not a lot went right for the Ravens offense. They were able to run the ball effectively and run it with Kenyon Drake, who had 86% of the Ravens running back carries and 60% of the team's total carries. This was a season high for him in terms of touches of game. He had 26 in that one.
They have a very friendly schedule after the bye. They get Carolina. They're going to be big favorites in each of their next 4
Then Jacksonville, and then home to Denver. And so I don't mind holding on to Kenyon Drake through the bye in case Gus Edwards isn't ready to come back. And once again, he's the starter in a really nice matchup 2 weeks from now against the Panthers. Other than that, the only other person that I might consider holding on to through the bye, outside of obviously Lamar Jackson, which are hanging on to him, would be Isaiah Likely.
Sure.
Just because we don't know the status yet of Mark Andrews. I get it. It wasn't as big a game as you would have hoped, but the Saints are one of the best teams in the NFL against tight ends. He got 5 targets in this game, and I think there was the one play down the sideline that if Lamar Jackson hits him in stride, that's a big play and possibly a touchdown. He did score. He's caught one ball, and that was a touchdown. So thank you very much. Isaiah Likely anytime touchdown was one of our best bets yesterday. That one cashed. Thank you very much. By the way, as did Justin Tucker, over 1.5 field goals.
Kenyon Drake over that hit too. And we got the Ravens on the money line as well.
Over. Ravens money line hit, as did Andy Dalton, primetime, anytime interception, over 0.5 interceptions.
World makes more sense when Andy Dalton throws picks in primetime.
Isaiah Likely over 40 receiving yards did not hit, and Alvin Kamara over 4.5 receptions did not hit. But otherwise,
overall, we made money.
We made money. I think we went 6-2 again in our best bets for Monday Night Football last night.
But that did not make money, though, was the Saints' offense, which was a bit of a disaster.
The only thing I was going to say is unlikely, just to finish up the conversation on Likely here just for 1 second, is that I think I'm encouraged by the 5 targets and the number of routes he ran, and that if Andrews were to miss, again, they have the Carolina Panthers. We just don't know the severity of Andrews' injury.
Yep.
But I do think if you can hold on to Likely, I think it's worth it. Again, I think you might look at this and the one reception for 5, but 5 targets, and again, the Saints are so good against tight ends. I think the upside of Likely is worth hanging on to him through the bye if you can.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about those Saints. Alvin Kamara really did nothing last night. 9 carries for 30 yards, 3 receptions for 32 yards. Obviously didn't give his managers anything close to what they were hoping for, and it's a pretty grim scene when the only guy who really performed was Juwan Johnson. I mean, Chris Olave didn't have a bad game, but he didn't get in the end zone, didn't do too much, and it's looking a little bit bleak for the Saints offense.
But I think it's yes, I mean, we could sit here and talk about what went wrong for the Saints, but I think for our purposes in the world of fantasy football, there isn't anything to take away, which is the stuff that you would normally do with the Saints offense. You're still starting Alvin Kamara next week. Who do they play? They play the Steelers at Pittsburgh next week.
Yep.
You're still starting Alvin Kamara. You're still starting Chris Olave, and that's it. Yeah, I mean, you want to stream Juwan Johnson. He had one big play, it was basically a missed tackle, and he runs down the end zone. He doesn't step out. Thank goodness. But the only question here is does Andy Dalton get benched here? As we talked about on the show, on the pre-show meeting, actually, this game is off the board, at least when we hit air.
Yeah. It's, fantasy-wise, I kind of hope he does get benched just because it's a more fun offense with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston had the highest, deepest average depth of target in the league. It probably increases Chris Olave's value just because there's more chance at the big plays as opposed to dump off Andy Dalton.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I'm hoping for Winston. I think that'll be better for Olave, just better for the offense in general. Although, Dalton has been good for Kamara. But ultimately, just bad day at the office against a tough and now fully healthy Ravens defense.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's get into waiver wired running backs. And let's start it off with Jeff Wilson, who is now competing with friend of the show, Raheem Mostert, for touches in Miami. It was basically a 50-50 split of snaps on the weekend.
He's available in basically 50% of Yahoo leagues. He plays the Cleveland Browns this week. Not necessarily a matchup that scares you here. Listen, Browns have been pretty good against the run recently, but they're so explosive on offense. I don't really think matchups matter. Wilson obviously used in the passing game as well. He out-touched Raheem Mostert 12-10 in his very first game with the Dolphins. He led the backfield in snaps and target share. Given Raheem the Dream's injury history, Wilson's familiarity with Mike McDaniel's offense, and just his production when he's been out there, to me, he's a priority add if you didn't already. We talked about him last week on the when the trade deadline happened, saying hey, grab him. You maybe not starting him, but you should grab him. So there you go.
Yeah, I just want shares of this Dolphins offense now that Tua's back. This could be the best offense in the league over the last 2 months of the season. And Raheem, he talked about it in our interview. Just having Tyreek and Jalen Waddle either side, it's like having Steph Curry and Klay Thompson spacing the floor. And yeah, I would be very much happy with picking up Jeff Wilson. Let's go to a darker situation, the Rams backfield, which has been dark for a few years now, basically ever since Todd Gurley left, outside of a brief kind of fun C.J. Anderson little cameo. But let's talk about Kyren Williams, who's available in 58% of leagues, and they're playing the Cardinals this week.
We've been talking about him for a while here. Came close to getting activated last week, and now it looks like this will be the week. There's opportunity there because no one has, pardon the pun, ran with this job, right? I mean, they've given shots to Ronnie Rivers, to Darrell Henderson, to Cam Akers multiple times. None of them have basically said, like, hey, I'm going to be the guy. I know this for a fact, that in Los Angeles, they love, with a capital L, Kyren Williams. Now, is that going to translate to production? Is it still going to be a running back by committee? Do they still have an offensive line that struggles? 1,000%. But the Rams playing a bottom 10 run defense in the Arizona Cardinals over the last 4 weeks. They're a bottom 10 run defense. I do think there's a chance for Kyren Williams. And as we've talked about, like, at least it's different. Yes. It's variance. We know what doesn't work for the Rams, and it's all the guys they currently have. So we haven't seen Williams. He's worth picking up just to see if he ends up popping, if they find something in him that they haven't had. The Rams are in evaluate for next year mode. At least they should be.
Yep, and that's the thing is that with Kyren Williams, it's to your point of the variance. Like, if he's good, then he'll keep the role. If Isaiah Pacheco's good, he might not keep the role because there's McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They don't even have that level of competition in Los Angeles at the moment. Are you dropping Darrell Henderson?
I don't have any problem with it. Like, on the season, he's running back 48 on a points per game basis. Like, he's barely a top 50 running back. I mean, he hasn't exceeded 56 total yards in a game since week 1. This year, when he's gotten 10 or more touches, he's averaging 9.7 fantasy points per game. I mean, just like, I got no problem dropping Darrell Henderson. And I'm not necessarily saying drop him for Kyren Williams, although I don't mind that. I'm just saying, like, yes, if you grab Darrell Henderson, if you've been holding on to him, like he's been bad, and a crowded backfield is going to add another guy this week.
Yep. All right, let's jump to Tampa Bay, who beat the vaunted Rams backfield on the weekend. Let's talk about Rachaad White, who saw a season high in touches. He's playing Seattle. They didn't want to face my Seahawks on American soil, so they chickened off to Germany. And Rachaad White.
I was trying to think. I was going to say something like in German, and I don't. What's a good German phrase? Like I was gonna, like cheerio, and hola, guten Tag.
Yes, guten Tag.
Tag. Oh, that's a good one. Yes, okay, there you go. Guten Tag, Rachaad White.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Tom Brady needs to learn how to curse in German.
Well, yeah, I think given his kind of general demeanor this year, he'd be very open to learning that.
1,000%.
Yeah, I think he will be cursing. The Seahawks might win that game. I think the Seahawks are just better than the Bucs right now. But
this is so. I've mentioned this rule before, right? I've talked about this, but my friend Chris Berman gave me this rule, which is the idea here is that anytime you see a team with a winning record getting points from a team with a losing record after like the third week in the season, you got to wait 3 weeks. You just bet them automatically. You don't think about it, you don't look at it, but just and it works about 2/3 of the time.
There you go.
And it worked. By the way, it worked last week. The Seahawks had a winning record, the Cardinals had a losing record, and the Cardinals were favored in that game.
Yep, we love the Seahawks. They end up winning comfortably.
Yes, they did. And that's the same thing that's happening here. The Buccaneers, who have a losing record, are favored against the Seahawks, who have a winning record.
Yep.
Give me the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Give me the Seahawks on the money line.
Yeah. Incredible to say, but right now I think Seattle has the better quarterback. Real life and fantasy. Fantasy, it's not close. Real life, you can make a case, but Geno Smith's playing at a higher level than Tom Brady right now.
Geno Smith more consistently.
Geno Smith doesn't need 58 pass attempts to get to 280 yards, which is basically what Tom Brady's doing every week. But let's talk about Rachaad White. Any interest in picking him up this week to play the Seahawks?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to find different ways to generate offense. Like, he had 11 touches in week 9, but that's a season high, right? He's had 3 or more receptions in 5 of his past 6 games. Like, Fournette seems to be wearing down. Single-digit carries, under 25 rushing yards, and 3 straight for Uncle Lenny. So I want to pick up Rachaad White just because I think he's talented. I think that, he could easily get a bigger role as the season goes on. Obviously, if anything happens to Fournette, he would be a must start. Do I feel good about starting him this week? I think he's a desperation flex play. I think he's viable in deeper leagues. And my assumption is that if you're in a deeper league Rachaad White is already rostered in a deeper league, right? You know, in the kind of league where you would start him this week, he's probably already rostered. Having said that, if he's available in your league, I do think Rachaad White is kind of interesting against the Seattle Seahawks if you are desperate, again, if you have Fournette. So
yeah, I think you probably
he's more insurance than somebody I'm looking for as like a great start this week. Does that make sense?
That's the thing, and you need Leonard Fournette to lose his passport in Germany, basically, and only Rachaad White makes it back to the US. That happens all the time. Yeah, I've lost my passport in Germany.
Sure.
Let's talk about Chuba Hubbard, who, for all we know, owns his passport and is looking like he's going to play because he was limited in practice. He's missed the past 2 games with an ankle injury, but he gets a fairly favorable matchup against the Falcons on Thursday night. Is this still an offense that can support 2 running backs?
And he practiced today too, which is helpful. It's so hard to say because, you know, if you go off last week's tape, then no, it can't support anyone. But if you go off the previous 2 games prior to that, you're like, yeah, okay. You know, they dominated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
And you're not worried about the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, the Falcons are a bad defense, right? They're 27th in the NFL in scoring defense over the last 4 weeks. Now, they're actually pretty good against the run. They're actually a top 5 run defense. But both Hubbard and Foreman are involved in the passing game. Hubbard more than Foreman. But they're not scared to dump it off to either guy here. I do think in a game in which they're probably going to have to move the ball with the running backs through the passing game, I'm still going to have Deontay Foreman ranked higher than Hubbard when my ranks come out this week just because I think he's the better running back. I think he's got the better chance at a touchdown based on his production so far. Even last week he didn't do anything, but still he had the big game 2 weeks ago. My expectation is it's probably 60-40 Foreman-Hubbard. But I do think Hubbard, who when he was active played on 86% of the third downs, and out-snapped Deontay Foreman 22-14 before leaving with that ankle injury in the fourth quarter the last time we saw him. I do think he's potentially interesting as a flex play this week in a PPR league.
Yep. Okay, let's quickly talk about a couple of Denver Broncos. Chase Edmonds available in 52% of leagues and Latavius Murray 69% of leagues. I don't want part of either of these guys going against the Tennessee defense, which is the best running defense in the league right now.
100%. And by the way, no issue dropping Melvin Gordon, you know, or Latavius Murray if you need roster space. It's going to be a 3-headed committee.
Yep.
On a low-scoring offense that has a very tough matchup here. I would probably rank them Murray, Gordon, Edmonds the rest of the way as we sit here, but you're certainly not feeling good about starting any of them against the Titans this week. And you sort of see how it plays out with Edmonds now in the fold. But it's
otherworldly rushing defense from the Titans, what they did to the Chiefs, basically making Andy Reid give up on the run entirely. Now, before we go to breaks, let's quickly talk some high-value insurance running backs, headlined by Alexander Mattison, available in 55% of leagues.
He's the poster boy for it.
So every year. This is like 4 years running.
Every time you want to talk about insurance running backs, Alexander Mattison, you know, just like Tony Pollard. But here's some other guys, you know, James Cook in Buffalo. I think if anything were to happen to Singletary, I think it'd be Cook, not Nyheim Hines. That would be sort of the main guy. Jalen Warren, you think about how badly it's gone for Najee Harris there. And Samaje Perine. If anything happens to Joe Mixon, who has dealt with injuries, we certainly feel a lot better about the Bengals running game after Joe Mixon's 5 touchdowns there.
Okay, let's go to break, Matthew. And when we come back, we'll talk wide receivers, including a wide receiver that the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, has been targeting in the red zone. He might be available on your wire.
All right. I'll tune in for that.
You better.
I'm contractually obligated to, yeah.
Chicago passing at the lowest rate is a good thing. Now they recognize Justin Fields as their RB1. Yes, we don't often get a quarterback coming off waivers this late in the season. Okay, he's available in 60% of leagues, of Yahoo leagues. I think it's way more ESPN leagues and other formats. Who is rushing in the double-digit figures every week now. Wow. I just got a notification. Chase Claypool is being traded to the Chicago Bears. Wow. There's a lot going on, you know, and it's, folks, I'm going to need more coffee. Interns, hey, stop making that meme and you come over and give me more coffee. hard to find good help.
Okay, after our show.
That is Denny Carter doing what Denny Carter does.
Yes.
Sitting in his underwear and his father's sweater.
Yeah. Well, Matthew, if you want more
more
rock solid waiver wire advice from a man dressed in a robe. I don't think I own a robe, but after that I might need to reassess.
He is our generation's head. There's no question about that. Yeah.
If you want to see that man yelling at his imaginary interns, which live somewhere inside his sick mind.
I actually, weirdly, I mean, I'm probably not supposed to sort of go behind the scenes here, but I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. He does have one intern. It's Roto Pat.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh,
that's who he's actually talking to right
Roto
there.
Pat. Poor Roto
Anyway,
Pat.
cat's out of the bag there. Anyway, right after this show, live at 1 o'clock Eastern on the NFL on NBC YouTube channel, our very own Denny Carter
will be taking your questions.
Takes your question, the Q&A. It's always fun. We love Denny. Friend of the podcast, Denny Carter.
Absolutely.
He does a great job there.
Does a great job.
As well. And I like that he took shots at ESPN. Shots fired.
In a robe,
in a robe. It's outrageous.
Always.
At least he wasn't shirtless.
That's true. Yeah.
That's fair. That is another network.
To go with the robe. All right, let's go into waiver wide receivers. Let's start with Mecole Hardman, who's been cooking with a little bit of gas lately. He's been Patrick Mahomes' favorite target in the red zone.
4 straight games now with double-digit fantasy points. He's had a double-digit target share in all 4 games, Jay. And last week, 4 red zone targets, right? And so, they find more and more ways to try to get him the ball in creative spaces. Like, we all got so excited about Kadarius Toney, right? The possibilities with Kadarius Toney, but they've actually been doing what you think they're going to do with Kadarius Toney. They've actually been doing it with Mecole Hardman, who over the last 4 games is playing, as you see it there on your screen, 50% of the offensive snaps. Look, he's top 5 in the NFL in terms of red zone targets over the last 4 weeks, since week 5 actually. And so, Mecole Hardman, suddenly it has taken a while for us to get here, but if you're telling me I can get a player that's going to play 50% of the offensive snaps with Patrick Mahomes, I want in.
Yep, Patrick Mahomes, clear favorite on BetMGM to lead the league in passing yards. There's a lot of yards out there to go around, and right now he's supporting Kelsey's obviously relevant. Juju has turned the corner in a big way and kind of was the hub of that offense against the Titans.
Yeah.
And then Mecole Hardman as well. And then, what's left for Kadarius Toney? Let's jump to Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Or Sky Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who seems to have sort of fallen off, by the way.
Giving up on
They play the Jaguars this week, by the way.
Yeah.
They play the Jacksonville Jaguars. Your
favorites.
Swagwars.
Yeah.
You love your Swagwars.
I do. All right, let's talk DPJ. Donovan Peoples-Jones plays at Miami. What's a relatively favorable matchup against Miami's secondary that has struggled?
Everyone has to throw against Miami because they're so good on offense that you get down. And so Jacoby Brissett, who I think has been impressive, better than expected.
He's been very solid.
He's been very solid, right? He's been fine. He's been, like the Colts would beg for Jacoby Brissett back right now.
He's like Jacoby Brissett is Case Keenum living in a mansion.
Yeah.
A real rich man's, like a
rich
real
man's
super
Case Keenum.
professional quarterback.
Like, I'm joking, but seriously, Jacoby Brissett was with the Colts for a number of years, and they would kill to have him back.
You know what he is? He's Case Keenum wearing a robe, a golden robe. That's what
exactly
Jacoby Brissett is.
I tell you right now, he'd be the best quarterback on the Colts at the moment.
No doubt.
The fact of the matter is that he's getting the ball to Donovan Peoples-Jones as it relates to our needs at the moment here. Since week 4, DPJ has had a 20% target share on a Browns offense that I think is throwing more than people expected. DPJ has had 70 or more yards in 4 of the last 5 games. He's had at least 50 in 6 of 8 games. So there's a floor there with some upside as well. You think about the matchup with Miami, as you mentioned, and the Dolphins have struggled in the secondary. To your point, they are 17th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. We saw Darnell Mooney have a good game against them last week. Cole Kmet get into the end zone a couple of times. So you
Look
think
at that
about
smile from DPJ.
He's happy to be here.
Another
He's
man
hey,
who looked
come
great.
Pick me up.
Look great in a robe.
Yeah,
DPJ.
exactly.
Yeah.
Look how nice I am. Look at how much I can help your fantasy team. Look at these stats. Donovan Peoples-Jones.
The thing is, he doesn't need that many targets to produce because of what he can do with the deep ball.
He's such a deep threat, yeah.
And he has been producing lately. Let's talk about Terrace Marshall Jr., who plays Atlanta on Thursday night. He's been the big beneficiary of the much maligned Robbie Anderson. It's not going great for Robbie Anderson at the moment, let me tell you.
Well,
key penalties against the Seahawks. It's just not happening for Robbie.
It's been a rough go of it for the last couple of years here for Robbie Anderson. But Terrace Marshall, who was drafted high by the Carolina Panthers and sort of stuck in it seemed like the I don't know, the doghouse, the Panther house, the
Panther
cat house.
Yeah, but now he's kept pounding,
He's
and now
kept
he's out.
pounding, and now he's out. And over the last 2 weeks, he's averaging 13.5 fantasy points per game. Since Robbie Anderson left, to your point, Jay, he's playing on 90% of the snaps. And you like this matchup on Thursday with the Atlanta Falcons, as Atlanta has allowed the most yards to opposing wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. Like, you can throw on Atlanta, and it does seem like there's a bit of a connection between him and P.J. Walker, who will get the start on Thursday. I believe, someone get in my ear and correct me if I'm wrong, Blake, but I'm pretty sure that Marshall caught the touchdown last week with Baker Mayfield under center. Baker came in the second half, and so I'm being told that is correct. So the fact of the matter is whoever's under center, they're looking for Marshall, who's out there on 90% of snaps and is the number 2 guy after DJ Moore in that passing offense. So yeah,
you know what,
top
Matthew?
20 wide receiver last week.
Yep, I think people are forgetting Terrace Marshall. If you get that joke. You get that?
I do.
Yeah, it took a while.
Right, exactly. You want to spoil that movie?
No,
that
I don't
one
want to
too?
spoil it. No, because it came out in the 21st century. It's safe.
It did.
It's wrapped in bubble.
It is.
Yeah.
I will say, if you enjoy male nudity, that is a movie for you.
Yeah.
Forgetting
Well,
Sarah Marshall.
Don't spoil it.
Right.
for
Sorry.
everyone.
There's a moment.
There's a
moment there. It's actually a very funny movie.
It's a fantastic.
It's actually a really good movie. It's the best of Russell Brand, not the crazy Russell Brand.
Also a fantastic movie is Sunday Night Football every single week, and this week it's going to be Chargers against the Niners.
Yes.
Niners are 7-point favorites.
By the way, the Chargers, the Bolts, bolt up. The Bolts making multiple appearances on Sunday Night Football. It came out just before we went on the air today that the Chiefs-Chargers game in Week 11 has been flexed to Sunday night.
As it should be.
As it should be.
Very good game when they met earlier in the
Herbert
season.
versus Mahomes, that'll be on Sunday night in Week 11. But this week it is the Chargers and the Niners, and DeAndre Carter is out there in, about 70% of Yahoo leagues, Jay Croucher.
Yeah, and particularly with the concerns around, we're not going to see Mike Williams. Don't think we're going to see Keenan Allen. Both didn't practice at all last week. Still, I don't think they've been declaratively ruled out, but certainly Williams' timeline was 2 to 5 weeks. We're very much at the skinny side of that. And then Keenan Allen, I just don't know what the hell's happening with Keenan Allen. And DeAndre Carter, he was close to having a moment against Atlanta. He didn't really have it, but still, 5 for 53, delivered an okay performance.
Yeah, 3 straight games with 5 or more targets. He went 5 for 53 on 6 targets last week again. Josh Palmer's still the guy you want there in terms of the passing offense, but with Gerald Everett being a little bit inconsistent, and we expect the Niners to focus a lot on Austin Eckler, DeAndre Carter for deeper leagues could be potentially viable against the Niners.
Okay, just quickly, Darius Slayton. Pretty favorable matchup against Houston, though Saquon Barkley might run it 35 times against that rushing defense, but any interest in Darius Slayton?
Yeah, a little bit. 11 or more fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games. He's had a 20% target share of that stretch. We've seen this before his rookie year. He was kind of a revelation. He had some nice moments in his rookie year. And so, look, I still have high hopes for Wan'Dale Robinson in this passing offense, but off the bye, give Brian Daboll credit. He has really turned this Giants offense around. And so I do think Slayton, who's a big play in a game against Houston, is a viable streamer this week in a deeper league, a 12-team, 3-wide receiver league.
Yep. Quickly, let's take a look at some injured wide receivers that you might want to stash. Headlined by...
Not guys that are going to help you now, but you could pick them up now, stash them as you hit the waiver wire. Odell Beckham Jr. obviously at the top of that. Could he go to the Cowboys? Jerry Jones is making the plea. He's thirsty for him. Could he go to the Bills or the Chiefs? Who knows there? Jahan Dotson. Jameson Williams, I think it's going to be a while before we see him, but he's an interesting guy. But Treylon Burks, people have forgotten about Treylon Burks, and, of course, Dotson from my Washington Commanders.
Okay, let's go to break, Matthew Berry. When we come back, we'll talk quarterbacks, and apparently Matthew Berry has a very patriotic message for us.
I do. By the way, if you need somebody to drop, Drake London.
Yes.
Make sure you drop him before Thursday night.
Drake London.
They ain't throwing to him. It ain't his fault, but,
Arthur
sorry.
Smith.
Go American. Drop London. See what I did there?
Well, get out and vote.
Yes. Tomorrow is an election day. And if you are eligible to vote, I encourage everyone out there, please vote. If there is a candidate in your area that is pro sports betting or pro DFS or pro fantasy, vote for that person.
Yes.
It's the land of the free. And you should be allowed to make wagers on crappy games like Falcons and Panthers. Our forefathers fought for a free country so that we could do same-game parlays.
Yes.
Most people haven't read the entire Declaration of Independence, but if you look at the very fine print at the very bottom, this land of liberty, life, and promo code Barry at BetMGM. That is what we are fighting for: life, liberty, and the pursuit of Barry boosts. There you go.
The founding
Just
fathers.
like it's right there. It's right there.
It's right there.
I mean, it's absolutely. It's definitely not photoshopped.
No,
100%.
it's absolutely
So
not.
there you go. Gut to your polls today. Listen, I voted. I'm pointing at the wrong one. All right. Listen. I'm not bright, but that's what's great is you can be a moron like me.
You just lost your vote.
You can get a moron. You can be a moron like me, and you still have your right to vote. It doesn't matter. So please get if you are eligible to vote, please vote. Please exercise your right to vote before polls close. If you're watching this on demand, pause us. We'll still be here. Pause us, go vote, come back, finish out the show.
Yeah, and then use promo code Barry.
And then obviously use promo code Barry like our forefathers intended.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
Let's
if
talk
you
about-
go to Gettysburg, there's a whole exhibit.
Boy.
I'm just telling you, if you go there, there's or Williamsburg, a lot of times.
A lot of burgs.
Pick a burg.
Yeah.
Right. And just
Peter Berg,
Yeah,
directed
exactly.
Friday Night Lights,
Exactly. I'm just telling you, when you go to these burgs and you see what people fought the Civil War for, it literally was for the pursuit of life, liberty, and to do one game parlays.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, 1,000%.
With promo.
And the pursuit of of Jimmy Garoppolo. And promo code Barry. Again, when you see have you ever done a Civil War reenactment? I feel like you're one of the guys that could. You strike me as kind of guy that would be into that sort of thing.
Why do I strike you as the kind of guy that would?
Kind of.
Tread carefully.
Yeah, you're into weird stuff.
I'm into weird stuff.
You're into weird
like Point Break and Fox Mulder and the X-Files.
I mean,
Australia,
it's Australia,
Vegemite,
right? Exactly. Vegemite.
Kangaroos carrying around cocktails.
Yeah, going from team to team to team to team.
True.
Like you jump from team. How you were on the Jaguars, and then as soon as they lost a game, you were on the Falcons, and then they lost a game, and then you jumped to the Jaguars, then you jumped to the Jets, and now you're on the Seahawks. You're like a bandwagon guy.
Yeah.
So you clearly go to Civil War reenactments, and you're a North guy.
Yeah.
You're clearly a North guy.
I'm a North guy.
You never fight for the South.
No,
that much is obviously.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's quickly race through some quarterbacks.
Yes, sir.
Firstly, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, both on bye. Less important, but Mac Jones and Zach Wilson are as well. So let's talk Jimmy Garoppolo, who plays the Chargers Sunday night.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Chargers are, a much better pass defense than they are run defense. But look, when you dump it off to Christian McCaffrey and he runs 60 yards, that counts for Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo has had 4 straight games now with multiple touchdown passes. He's been a top 11 fantasy quarterback in points per game in that stretch. He's had at least 250 passing yards in 3 of the 4 games. So, Garoppolo, I think, is a viable streamer this week. Just quickly running through it, how about Daniel Jones? Danny Dimes turning into Danny Quarters. He's had at least 6 rushing attempts in every game this season. They're using the legs quite a bit. Houston has allowed the most rushing yards in the NFL this season. And then how about Marcus Mariota?
Yeah,
Again,
my former Flame.
Your former Flame, right? We talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of one-game parlays. Thursday night's going to be ugly unless you've got action on it, and action can include starting Marcus Mariota against the Carolina Panthers, who since week 4 are 24th in the NFL in pass defense. He had the second most fantasy points Mariota did when he played the Panthers in week 8. So Mariota, who uses his legs, he throws a little bit as well. He's got Cordero Patterson back. I think he's a viable streamer.
Yep. Lastly, Jacoby Brissett, available in 93% of leagues. He plays with that favorable matchup against Miami. They'll have to be throwing to keep up with that one.
No team in the NFL gives up more fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks than the Miami Dolphins. Jacoby Brissett, very quietly, has had at least 31 pass attempts in 5 out of the 8 games so far this year. He's not going to run like Justin Fields, but still, if you're in a pinch, Jacoby Brissett is a guy that qualifies at quarterback, and you could do worse at quarterback this week.
Okay.
All right.
Let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk tight ends.
All right.
All right, Matthew Barry, let's close out talking waiver wire tight ends, and we start with the immortal Greg Dulcich playing at the Titans.
Look, every week since he came back from injury, he's been a top 12 fantasy tight end. He's averaging over 60 yards receiving in the 3 games since he came off IR. There's not much that's going right with the Broncos offense, but Greg Dulcich is one of them. He's available at 65% as well. Hey, by the way, Undertaker gif, out of the grave, rising back up to fantasy relevance, Cole Kmet.
A true definition of a renaissance man, Cole Kmet, out of nowhere. What's that, 3 touchdowns the past 2 weeks after he would have been dropped everywhere? Is he a viable streamer again?
1,000%, especially when you think about his upcoming schedule. Detroit, Atlanta, like the next 2 games. Then he plays the Jets. Sauce Gardner, taking care of Darnell Mooney, maybe middle of the field as well for Cole Kmet. I think you should pick him up.
Yep. Cade Otton caught the game-winning touchdown pass, saved Tampa Bay's season. Is he a viable streamer in Deutschland? Are you saying Guten Tag to Cade?
60 or more yards in 2 of the past 3 games. He's had 3 straight games with a snap rate above 80%. Cameron Brate, of course, has missed all 3 games. But yeah, you catch the game-winning touchdown from Tom Brady, you earn more opportunities. Tight end is a barren wasteland. Just like when you're out there in your Civil War reenactments, you know the barren wasteland. So yes, I do think Cade Otton is a viable streamer if you're down that far. Dulcich and Kmet, though, I think are viable for the rest of the season as well. All right, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here because it's closing time. Go vote, people.
Go vote.
Please go vote, and we'll see you tomorrow. For Jay Croucher, I'm Matthew Berry. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.